host of The Game Last Night and the mini version, The Game Last Night Cap. Oh, what's good, baby?
Hey, it's so good to connect with you guys. I love having James Ham on. It makes me feel like I need to step up my game because he's so wise. All the statistics and the dates. I'm like, oh gosh, can I make this work?
I think you kill it. I don't know. Plus, you have the best spiral staircase in the history of spiral staircases. So, yeah.
James is very envious of the staircase.
I just like stare at it like over this, like the whole time. Like, okay, like how do we do this?
What's funny is when whenever I'm doing something like this and I happen to be sitting somewhere else, people are like, well, "Did you move? Where's the staircase?" I'm like, "It's there.
It's
I have
iconic.
other rooms in the house."
It's like the Washington Monument now. Like it's the Olivia Monument. That James is begging to go. Olivia, can you just move over a little bit so the staircase is in full view of everybody?
Yeah, see, that is
that's a nice
staircase.
That's a nice staircase. So
I'm gonna build one of those into the basement.
So funny.
To like a winery in the basement. Yeah.
Basketball's back. We got our first taste of Kings basketball last night. Obviously, we've been discussing that in depthly last night. Last year was your that we've been discussing it in depthly today. Last year was your first year feeling the full year-long pain of covering the Sacramento Kings fans now, or covering the Sacramento Kings and joining Kings fans in their pain. Does it feel a little bit different for you headed into season number 2 for you, but specifically just kind of headed into this season?
I feel like I do feel the pain more. I get it. I get how you have this excitement coming out of Summer League. You have excitement around winning them. You got a great draft pick, and it's like, yes, we had a great preseason. What can we do? And then opening night, you lose in the last few seconds. I feel like, yeah, I understand this pain now. I can't be surprised by it. I went through it a lot last year. And hopefully it won't continue, but I wasn't super surprised by what happened at the end of last night's game.
What stood out for you? What
let's
go positive. Let's go positive. What was really good for you last night?
I love the fact that they, like, De'Aaron Fox put his head down and got in the paint a lot. I like that his shot was falling. Herder did a really great job. He was shooting as well. I was excited to see some of the energy they had defensively and certain points where they clearly stepped it up a bit. So I like that they seem to have a bit of a groove. They understand what works. And it's similar to football, right? Like if you go to the basket, it will open up opportunities around the perimeter. If you run the ball, it'll open up your playbook and you can, throw down the field. I think the Kings just need to be consistent with that throughout the game. Continue to run to the basket as much as you can. Have some constant movement. Don't get stagnant. Don't start looking around. And it's going to pay off for them.
When you were watching, did you think, are they going to shoot like 300 threes? Because, I mean, at one point it was like, holy cow, I think all they do is shoot threes. But, it was like that year, the Dallas Mavericks shot like so many threes when they moved the 3-point line in like 12 inches and all of a sudden everyone shooting threes. George McLeod like shooting like 500 threes. But did you feel that like it was like, okay, they've got to do something other than just hoist?
Well, I'm excited when they go down, of course. If you're hitting those threes, keep shooting them. It's a shooting league. You're going to have to shoot the lights out, and it's streaky as well. But of course, you don't want to rely on that because, ebbs and flows of the game. So you have to play an inside-out game consistently. Don't forget what got you there, what got you those open looks, what helped you get those threes off, and that is, going into the paint and dishing it out, and also catching and shooting. Putting people in a position to take a shot right out of, in a potential assist, as opposed to standing around dribbling, trying to create, wearing down the shot clock, and putting yourself in a position where you now have to hurl it up there. So again, the Kings got to be smart, and there's some tendencies in basketball. So I'm not upset with them for having moments of lapses in terms of energy and remembering their spacing and keeping movement, but you just don't want to make that a habit. And so again, shoot the threes if they drop, but also have that plan that everybody relies on going into the paint and opening up those opportunities around the perimeter as a result.
That's a great analogy, though, that I hadn't thought of before that I really, really like. The football analogy of how the run can open up the pass, how it makes perfect sense. If you are penetrating to the basket, you've got to convert those, though. You got to convert those shots at the rim. Now all of a sudden you've got these guys collapsing in, which leaves the Monks, Hurters, Terrence Davises. It leaves those guys. It creates a more open shot. Whereas if you've got someone, either they're going to stop short of the basket, no one has to commit to collapsing, or they're not going to finish at the basket, so no one has to collapse, and it creates a more contested shot outside should the offense choose to go that way, or whoever's penetrating choose to go that way. That's an analogy I haven't thought of before that I really like. That's a good one.
Yeah, the Kings are doing what go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if they don't make those shots at the rim, which of course they should, those are high percentage shots, the defense has no choice but to at least collapse a bit, which gives you some space, right? They can't just let you have an open dunk and open, you can't just go up and have layups left and right. They're going to have to make a decision on stepping up and stepping in front of you. So you have to at least do a little bit of that. Hopefully it will go in, but you cannot just rest on the outside. You can't just stand behind the 3-point line and let them dare you, which is Portland did a little bit of that. And then when he started knocking him down, they had to take that into account. How do we adjust to that? But it's an all or nothing. You can't just do one or the other. You've got to be able to adjust to what the defense is doing, but also stick with what got you there. Stick with what's getting you those leads and maintain that energy and concentration throughout the 4 quarters.
Yeah, the Kings are doing what they call paint touch threes. Like before a 3-pointer is hoisted, the ball has to get to the paint. And so what they're trying to basically do is collapse the defense at least somewhat and then open up. They also do something where they've got, if you watch the court, there's always 2 guys on one side and 3 guys on the other. So either you can do a 2-man game on one side, or you can swing it to the 3, where you have 3 options for shooters on the other side. So it's really interesting to see how they're making cuts off of that and everything else. I like what they're doing offensively, and I just think it will take time. To me, a lot of what we saw both on the offensive end and the defensive end was just like you can't expect to reset everything out of nowhere. And Mike Brown cannot come in with completely different players and basically do what the Golden State Warriors did last year. You can't expect that. And I think that, again, the expectations are really high and the positivity is really high, and you don't want to get too far behind. But again, this is about an 82-game grind. It's not about one game. It's not about the first 5 games of the season. And the Kings are going to have to show that they can fix some of these issues, but they also need more time in the pot to stew.
That's true. I think there's a level of expectation from everyone in the league right now, just because of all the moves that were made. And I think fans and the 3 of us here have a level of expectation on what they're going to show us on the court. And that's good. I want the players to feel that level of expectation from everyone in the league and from their fan base, so that they do perform, that they do step up, and they do understand what Mike Brown is trying to bring to the table. Yes, it'll take time to implement all this stuff, for sure. And hopefully they don't get into this pattern where we've seen them, where they get stuck in this losing streak where they're doing the same thing over and over again. And I like the fact that Mike Brown calls timeouts. We're not having it. Let's stop it now. Let's end this and regroup and remind ourselves again of how we got here and what we need to do to finish this game. So I do think needs to be some leeway. It was opening night. It's fine. But at the same time, I'm just a nervous person. I don't want to see these things continue in the next few games, because you can wake up one day and it's 0-10. And now it's a whole other experience, right? So it's let's get this fixed as soon as we can, and not create more bad habits.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not wake up and be 0-10. Let's just veto that right here. Okay, so that was pot. What didn't you like? What drove you nuts last night?
Well, I don't know if this is something that drove me nuts, but one thing I noticed, I don't know if you guys caught this, there was one play where Sabonis hit the floor 3 times in one possession. He got knocked around. He was trying to get up. He got knocked down again. And I don't know if it's a wet spot on the floor, because once he fell, he couldn't stand back up. But I could hear it in Los Angeles, watching it on NBA TV. I'm like, what is happening? I felt like he got banged around a lot, and he's going to get banged around a lot, because we already know, I don't think the Kings players get the kind of calls that other teams get. It's they need to see cuts and bruises and blood, and they're like, all right, I guess it's a flagrant. I guess we should take a timeout and review it. So Sabonis, I'm nervous for him staying healthy, because if you're going to be thrown on the ground multiple times, I'm nervous about whether or not he can stay healthy, whether or not he gets lackadaisical or depressed or whatever. Like, I can't win here. And he throws up his hands. So it's not something I'm necessarily nervous about for the team, but I'm concerned about Sabonis being knocked around like that. One thing that I did have concern around was whether or not they were going to come out nicely out of the halftime. Those third quarter scaries didn't show up that much.
Yeah.
That was great.
That's King scarring right there. That is a scarred Kings fan being scared. We're the only fan base on the planet scared to death of the third quarter.
Yeah.
Can we just take a 2-minute timeout? Please, let's not go back to the locker room. But they survived that. But a thing that did make me upset was at the end of the game. And those fouls, those and ones. If you're going to foul, you got to wrap them up. You cannot give them the potential of finishing that shot. And they did it, 2 or 3 times down the stretch. And it put us in a terrible position. We ended up losing by just a couple of points. And had we not had those and ones, we might have walked away with it. But I just don't, it's lazy to me when you don't go hard and wrap them up, or you just kind of like throw your hand out there and hope to make that steal. You're not going to get that steal. Everyone's practicing this, right? They're trying to get that and one. They're lifting weights and they're running this in practice, wanting to make sure they finish the shot. So you got to wrap them up.
Yeah. Okay. So on the Sabonis thing, what happened there was because I watched it. It actually looked at one point like Nurkic had just shoved him down. But what happened was on that play, they were battling and Sabonis slipped on he fell. And he then kept slipping on his own sweat spot. So he created a gigantic sweat spot. Nurkic was just standing there and then just kept watching Sabonis slip out and smack down on the ground. It was almost like someone kept throwing a banana peel out there. It was horrible to watch because the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh man, did Nurkic just throw him down?
That's what I thought too.
And then Sabonis does it again, falls again, and then he falls again. You're like, oh my gosh, is he gonna So I too
throw Nurkic out.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried. Like they need to bubble wrap this guy because he means so much to the team. Like he took a beating. Some of it was self-imposed, like from the wet spot on the ground, but some of it was just like the physicality of the game was crazy, and the Kings are going to have to make sure that they can keep him healthy.
Yeah,
that's my thing is like if you're slipping on the ground over and over again, that's the mental thing I'm thinking about. That's where I'm like, I'm just tired. I can't even get up on my feet. This game is crazy. I'm not going to get these calls. And then I might get hurt from slipping in my own sweat. Like, how depressing is that?
Yeah.
I remember that now that that's fun. Now that you point that out, I remember thinking that Nurkic pushed him and I thought, guys, wow, they didn't call that. They're really letting him go. And then when there was finally a dead ball, I think De'Aaron and people who were on the floor, like they had the towel people come over and they're all pointing at the ground. They're like, here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they've got, emergency towel crews out there, like cleaning up the area. That makes a lot more sense than Nurkic throwing him to the ground repeatedly.
Yeah. I think it was during one of their battles that he got knocked down. And then once it happened, it was like, he kept finding the spot. And Nurkic was almost like the dude at the grocery store when something breaks and falls on the ground. He's like trying to say, everyone stay away. We got a wet spot. And Sabonis is like caught in the wet spot, like bam, bam. You're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Nurkic is like, everyone else stay back. We got a wet spot, and this guy keeps falling.
It's like Home Alone with Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah.
You could just hear the Curb Your Enthusiasm music in the background.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my god, get up, Sabonis.
That's a good call, but it not that specific play. But Olivia's concern speaks to what you were saying, James, at the beginning of the show, and it is frustrating as the points in the paint were for Portland. Domantas Sabonis is a really physical player, and wet spot not being able to get to your feet withstanding, like he's a physical dude who's going to take he's going to take a beating this season.
Yeah. No, I'm very concerned that he's going to take a beating, and it's going to be a situation like this in every game. I mean, again, we talk about like once the Clippers lost their stars last year, everyone thought they would collapse, and they didn't. And it's because they were tryhards. They just worked harder than everyone else, and they were more physical. Where we're going to see the same thing on Saturday. They roll in. It's going to be a physical battle, and I think Sabonis is just so much more talented than any big that they can throw at him. But that doesn't change the fact that they can sit there and just thump him, and he needs to be cognizant of it. And the Kings do too. They need to, if a guy is hitting your big man like that nonstop, you got to send someone in there to be your enforcer. And maybe you do need to go Alex Len for a few
There
plays
you go.
and let Alex Len go out there and do his Ukrainian thing and get up in someone's face. We've seen it in the past with Alex, and I remember it was against the Clippers a few years ago where he, oh no, it was Lakers, but in LA where him and Montrezl Harrell got into it. And it was like, no, you're not going to pull that stuff here. Like after they acquired him the first time. And so, maybe they do need to send someone out there to kind of lay the wood and, hit somebody.
Alex Len does resemble a movie villain.
Yeah.
I was watching him warm up yesterday. I was afraid to make eye contact. Like Alex Len looks like you talk about an enforcer. Like Alex Len could absolutely be an enforcer for this team.
He could be on John Wick.
Sure.
Yeah. Instead of Boban. Yeah.
Boban's too friendly. Boban's getting jars off the top shelf for
but
people.
he was in John Wick. I think he was in John Wick 3. Boban was.
I don't think I've gotten that far. Like I did the first one. Like I get the references. I don't think I've gone past the first one.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Damien. I think I've only seen the first one. But
by the way,
I've definitely seen the commercial of taking things off the shelf 100,000 times.
Oh yeah. Shout out to the YouTube chat.
It's like dealing with a sophomore class.
I assure you have not gone unnoticed. So we appreciate you guys. One person we haven't really talked about, James. We haven't, in Olivia, we haven't. One person we haven't really talked a lot about today is Davion. Olivia, I'll start with you. We were kind of looking to see, Davion was a guy who lots of Kings fans kind of got their eyes on, anxious to see the growth for him. Me, anxious to see how he grows with a little bit of stability under Mike Brown here. What did you think of Davion Mitchell last night?
I love the fact that Davion always comes ready to play defense, just ready and hungry. And you can tell by how low he gets in his squat. He's ready to get after it. And he really lifts the team. It's like they want to match his energy. What I want them to do really is be able to match that energy when even he's sitting on the bench. Like just everybody come out that same way. But I like that he didn't show up kind of lackadaisical. It's the first game. We'll see what's going on. He clearly looked hungry. And I think he's now with, new players on the team, he's going to have to find his way offensively. But, I feel like offensively that the Kings have a lot of weapons. What we need to be really concentrating on is obviously using those weapons in a way that's most beneficial, but playing defense. And again, Davion comes with that energy. It's infectious. And when he's on the court, people seem to step up around him. But I'm excited to see how he grows on both ends of the court this year and how well he can kind of be a defensive inspiration. So he was a lot of that last year. I hope he can maintain that this year.
Yeah, I think when I watched Davion last year, it was like his defense was consistent throughout the year. But one night he would score. The next night it was like he almost felt bad that he scored too much. And so he would get like 5 or 6 assists, but not score. And he just kept doing this going back and forth. And so it wasn't until the end of the season when he just got full run of the team that he was consistent with his scoring and his assists both. But I think he's still trying to figure out how he fits in and where he fits in. And I think it's going to be a struggle because, again, I think you could see a point where if he's not firing, if he's not figuring it out, where you could go something like Monk and Terrence Davis off the bench together in a backcourt and move away from him a little bit until he figures it out. His jump shot, like I saw it, I was shocked when we looked at the numbers the other day. He shot 60% from 3 during the preseason. It didn't feel like that. Like everything he's shooting is coming out really high. And I know they worked on that last season to try to get a little more arc on his shot, but now it's coming out too high. Like there's just something that's just a little off with him. And I'm waiting for him to kind of settle into a role and really find his game and become like a viable option. Because even last night, I thought that, the natural thing would be to have him defend Damian Lillard down the stretch, and they used Terrence Davis instead. And to me, that was just an intriguing twist that I didn't see coming. And a lot of it was because he was 1 of 8 from the field. And I think that they were worried that they needed a scorer out there to go with them. And Terrence was, playing a good ball game.
Well, I think that's, figuring out where you need to put players is the coach's job. At that point in the game, they needed Terrence. They couldn't give up. They couldn't have an offensive liability at that point because the game was too close. If Davion can continue to establish himself as a defensive enforcer, we can count on him causing trouble the full length of the court. He can play that role, but he can't be an offensive liability, especially because Terrence Davis is back. He can, do a lot of things. But I think all players have to just play within themselves. Yes, you want to develop your skills. You want to be able to be relied upon. But if you're known and can be established as this one thing, and it's so necessary and important for the rest of the team to get that from you, that might be okay. But we'll see as the season progresses. I definitely don't want him, throwing up shots and assists just to kind of say, I did a lot of different things. That's not it, right? Do the thing you do well consistently, continue to grow and fill the role that you've been asked to play. And a lot of these players just have to be okay with sometimes not being in the game at that moment because that's not their strength at this point. That's something that Richaun Holmes has had to figure out, right? He's been playing in chaos since he's been around, and that's just something you have to do as an adult, as a professional. And I think Davion understands that, but there's no way he's going to, relent from really attacking whoever he's playing and coming with that energy. And the Kings need that night in and night out.
They're talking about you in the chat, by the way. Thank God, not because of our questionable dialogue here today. Well, because you're a Yankees fan. And can I point out, I love your social media bit. It took me a minute to catch on to what was happening, but every time the Yankees win, you post a picture of you and your dad at Yankee Stadium. And I was so confused because you posted the picture and I'm like, yo, they're at the game. That's crazy. That's great. And then it happened again. And then I looked at it closer. I was like, wait a minute. And realized, oh, that's the bit. When the Yankees win, you post a picture of you and your dad. That's awesome.
Some of it's in the Coliseum. It's not all at Yankee Stadium. But I have to say, I actually post the picture before the game every night. And
you can see it after. I assume it's
by the time you see it, yeah.
I assume it's the celebration.
You can tell that it's over time because of how different my hair looks in every picture and how chubby my cheeks might look. My dad is consistent. He has looked like a 70-year-old.
Yeah, your dad's never aged. Yeah, I've known your dad for a long time. He's never aged.
He stopped at a certain point.
Looks the same.
I'm a gigantic Yankees fan, and there have been some folks who like to point out, they'll say things like, oh, they're not going to win, and the Yankees. I'm like, you're not going to talk me out of being a Yankees fan. It's not going to happen. I'm going to put on this shirt that used to be much bigger fitting and squeeze into it, put on my hat, post a photo, and I'm going to dance around the house when they win. That's just going to happen. And hopefully they win tonight. Houston is an Achilles heel, as was Toronto and Baltimore for whatever reason. The Yankees have trouble, but I'm hopeful, and you're not going to be able to talk me out of it. Go Yankees.
Kevin Herter wore his Yankees hat to post game last night. And when he was done talking, I said, this is proof that Kevin Herter's not, in fact, my son, because no son of mine will ever wear a Yankees hat. He would get it would not be good.
Not be good.
It would not be good in my house. You don't bring that stuff. He just they're
well,
the
now
evil
I know
empire.
I know what I'm going to wear to your house when you show me your stairs. Every piece of Yankee material that I have, from socks to gloves to beanies.
It's funny. My brother's a Yankees fan, and I actually, in my bar, I do have a lot of black and whites of former Yankees, like Babe and Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, stuff like that. But we're not allowed to wear Yankee stuff in the house.
My dad and I used to go watch the Yankees play the A's on Father's Day every year. There was a year, like 5 or 6 years in a row, they would always be there Father's Day weekend. They've changed the schedule since. But one year, one of the guys who was like the traveling secretary, kind of like Costanza on Seinfeld, that role, he saw my dad in his Reggie Jackson jersey and he gave him a signed ball. Reggie Jackson didn't come out, but he's like, yeah, he's down there. He just wanted to give it. My dad was like a child. Oh my gosh, I've got this ball. And I was like, put it away, Dad. Put it away. Someone might jump you for it or something. But that is his prized possession. Me and that ball are his prized possession.
There we go.
Well, you have brothers and sisters too. I just feel like I should point that out. I just, for those wondering, she does have brothers and sisters. So
one brother, two sisters, but they know what's up. They know.
Okay, no doubt. I've seen it. I know. We all know what's up. That's Olivia Christian. The game last night will come.